My name is Thomas LaRock. I am the chair for the Data Platform Live event as part of the Live 360 in Orlando. And I have been working with data for a long time. I'm not going to say I'm old, let's just say I'm experienced. And mostly primarily, I've been database administrator, but over the years, I've done a lot of database development. And these days, I'm heavy into data science, data analytics. I've been coming to Live 360 since it started, and I want to say that was in 2012, 2011, 2012. So I have been on and off attending. Actually, I think I've done all the Live 360s except for 1 year I had a conflict. It is by far one of my favorite events. Oh, that's hard. Uh, It's hard because it seems to be not enough hours in the day to be able to do both. You want to be able to master the fundamentals, and that takes time. And if you want to keep up with trends, well, that also takes time. I think the best way to approach it is to find where those two things overlap, right? So if while you're mastering the fundamentals, but you come across an idea and there might be a new piece of code that can help you, maybe you start to learn that, and so you're able to keep up with trends. For example, when SQL Server started adding windowing functions, so you used to be mastering a fundamental of writing these queries and performing these windowing functions and aggregations by hand, and then eventually SQL Server added in native support for a lot of this and made your code a little bit easier. So that's the type of overlap I'm talking about, is where you see an opportunity in your day-to-day job to learn something new and have it apply to the work that you're already doing. Uh, well, it takes place right next to Universal Studios. Not a whole lot of events take place basically right across the street from Universal in Orlando. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is the level of experience for the speakers is deep. The speakers that we recruit and come back year after year have decades of experience, and a lot of them are either working for Microsoft or have worked for Microsoft at some capacity through the years as well. You you're not going to find a more qualified set of professional instruction and speakers than you will at Live 360. It's just amazing. Well, data quality has always been critical, not just now, but forever. I think the questions about data quality have evolved into the mainstream conversation over the past 10 years. I think a lot of that has come about just through the nature of data breaches. So they go kind of hand in hand, where a data breach happens, and now you're a little bit more worried about security and privacy. And as you dive into that, you start understanding that some of the data just isn't even right. It's just a mess. And how do you make sense of it all? And you start coming across and realizing that there are a lot of fundamentals when it comes to certain, I'll say, data quality, data governance, and the idea of having a data catalog to make sure that you know a ground source of truth and things of that nature. These are hard, cumbersome things to tackle. They're very important. They're critical at times and often overlooked, and I think they get pushed aside because a lot of there's just a mindset of, I need to get up and running and start something quickly, and we'll have time for all that governance stuff later. And then you maybe never get around to it, or it just becomes too late. It's definitely a critical conversation that's happening but AI is pushing that even further, because now you're having conversations with your data, and it may not be right. And I use this daily, where I get back information from one of the AIs, be it ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and I'm looking at it going, I don't think that's right. And so where are they getting it from? They're getting it from the internet. They're getting it from their source material, and their source material has poor quality. So you're going to be having poor conversations. So yeah, over the last 10 years, a lot of things have come together to highlight a lot of these, uh, I'll say, issues with data quality. Well, I'm hoping that people walk away with an understanding of how a relational database engine works and why it works that way and why it was designed that way. I think there are, each year there are more and more people that fall into working with either SQL Server or some other relational engine. And they're running queries, and sometimes a query takes too long, or sometimes the query doesn't return necessarily the expected results. And so there's a lot of learning that has to happen. So I'm hoping that if people show up for that session, that their main takeaway is understanding why the engine works that way, and if if what's happening to them is a problem, and what they can do to solve it. So the workshop is I'm actually presenting with two Microsoft employees, Bradley Ball and Daniel Taylor. Again, you're not going to get more experienced people than the folks we bring in, especially from Microsoft when it comes to working with SQL Server. I've known both of them going on 12 years or more at this point, and we've presented this workshop a few times through the years. So, what's the biggest and best changes to SQL Server? I think there's been a shift, a slight shift. There's always been a need in my time with working with Microsoft and SQL Server and seeing how the product is developed. There's always been a way for people to try to, it's that idea of self-service BI, help people get more value from their data. But I think in the past 7 to 8 years, I think that's been accelerated. And you see a lot of the features coming into SQL Server, the latest ones with allowing a lot of, I want to say, integration with AI tools such as APIs, right? They're making it easier and easier for you to find ways to get value from the existing data you already have. And in a way, they're doing it because if they already have you and your data somewhere, like in Azure, they want you to keep it there. So they have to give you this functionality that other competitors are providing, right? So to me, I think that's been the biggest change I've seen just in the past few years. And a quick example would be something like uh, getting vector search into SQL Server 2025. So that's just a small example of some of the things that are going into the product these days. And some of us, like me, always say, I want you to make this query thing faster and show me the knob to turn to make the CPU go lower, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you can't help people get value from the data, they're going to go to a product that will. So to me, I think that's been the biggest change. Yeah, well, the biggest advantage is just being in the rooms. So uh, I want to say the biggest advantage is that it allows you the opportunity to create a very close-knit network of people that you can leverage when you have questions. So I've been coming to there for 14 years. I have made many new friends. So the biggest advantage for anybody being in that room is you have an opportunity to make some new friends that have deep technical experience in an area where you might need to leverage their experience. So I made just in the past years friends with a handful of people, and they reach out to me either email or LinkedIn. And hey, have you seen this weird behavior I'm seeing? And the answer usually is yes. And if I don't know it, we go to Brad, or I go to Dan, or I go to Andrew, and I go to somebody else, and I ask these questions, and I just sort of say, "Hey, can we help this person get through whatever block they're having right now?" So building that close little network of 8 or 10 people that you find like-minded at this event, that's the biggest advantage you have. And again, you're not going to find a better group of people in terms of experience, in terms of their friendliness, their willingness to help others before they help themselves. That's what you're going to get at Live 360. Absolutely. Uh, I as the chair of the data platform Live, I have access to a lot of these materials in my own track. throughout the year. So I can kind of come and go in and out of those sessions rather easily. I'm more interested in what's happening in the other tracks. And in this case, the artificial intelligence track is one that I'm always looking at with interest. I hope one day I'll actually start building some materials to present in that track as well. But that's where you're probably, if I'm not in the speaker room and if I'm not doing a session for myself, I'm probably going to be, you'll find me in one of the AI sessions. That's a good question. It's been a lot of memories over the years. I think some of my favorite interactions are when people come with a question and they're coming from a perspective that I don't have yet. So, for example, somebody will come up and say, "Hey, I'm having this problem." And you start asking a few questions like, "Well, tell me more what you're doing." And then you come to find out they work for some really large insurance company or media company. And the problems that they're having are, let's say, edge cases. And so that's not a scenario that I would necessarily come across in my daily work. So I now I have an opportunity to learn something new, learn what they're doing, how they're doing it, understanding why they're coming across this problem, and then trying to help them find a solution. It's like, I don't know, constantly solving puzzles. If you're somebody who likes to solve puzzles all day, then that's some of the things that you get at this type of event, and that makes for a memorable conversation. And a lot of times those conversations happen in the speaker room, but they usually happen at the end of a session when you tell people, if you have questions, come on up, and there'll be a line, and they'll stump me. I don't necessarily know, but you know what I can do? Let's walk across the hall and talk to Brad, Dan, or Buck, and let's see if we can get ourselves an answer for you. And if we can't answer it right now, we're going to help you find that answer, in the next few days. Because we know people at Microsoft, and we know people that have this level of experience. So those are usually the most memorable interactions I have.